I think you're going to see food prices coming down very substantially.
Saudi Arabia, tomorrow you're hosting Saudi Arabia. Are you planning to sell F-35s to Saudi Arabia?
Yeah.
And also, are you looking at doing a similar security agreement like you did with
No, I am planning on doing that. Yeah.
President Donald Trump's declaration that the United States will move forward with the sale of advanced F-35 fighter jets to Saudi Arabia has set off waves of uncertainty across Washington. This is not the sort of announcement that might normally shock a city accustomed to dramatic turns. But this time, the stakes are altogether different. When Trump stated from behind the Resolute desk, "We will be doing that. We'll be selling F-35s." The reaction was instantaneous, and the concerns were more layered than ever before. The timing was striking. Trump announced his intention to authorize the sale just one day before Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, arrived in Washington for his first visit in more than 7 years. That alone was enough to raise questions. Why make such a sweeping commitment before the meeting even takes place? Was the decision the result of long-term strategic consideration or a political gesture designed to impress the Crown Prince before he set foot in the White House? And perhaps most importantly, would the United States be giving away far more than it stands to gain? The aircraft at the center of this storm, the F-35, is no ordinary fighter jet. It represents the height of American aviation technology, a multi-role stealth platform packed with sophisticated systems that have shaped U.S. military doctrine for decades. Produced primarily by Lockheed Martin, the jet costs between $80 million and $110 million per plane, depending on the model. But the real value lies in the technology embedded deep within its structure. Stealth coatings, radar-evading design, encrypted communications, advanced sensors capable of fusing data from multiple sources, and an electronic warfare suite unrivaled by any foreign competitor. For Saudi Arabia, purchasing the F-35 would mark a historic leap forward. For the United States, the decision represents a complicated calculation, one that touches on geopolitics, intelligence risks, alliance management, and domestic politics. At the heart of the debate is a critical question. Can Washington entrust one of its closest but most unpredictable partners with some of its most sensitive military secrets? Saudi Arabia has for decades been the largest buyer of American weapons. The U.S.-Saudi defense relationship has weathered wars, diplomatic crises, oil shocks, human rights scandals, and shifting global alliances. But this time, the challenge is unique. A recent Defense Intelligence Agency report warned that China could potentially gain access to the F-35's technology if the United States finalizes a deal with Riyadh. The concern is rooted in Saudi Arabia's expanding cooperation with Beijing, which now spans not only telecommunications, notably through Huawei's 5G networks, but also ballistic missile development, surveillance technology, and joint defense projects. The question haunting intelligence officials is simple but deeply consequential. Can Saudi Arabia guarantee that the fighter jet's communication systems, stealth materials, flight algorithms, and onboard sensors will remain shielded from Chinese experts, some of whom already operate inside the kingdom? If even small fragments of the F-35's technology were exposed, the consequences could ripple globally. China has spent years trying to replicate Western stealth capabilities, sometimes through direct cyber intrusions. A single breach involving an operational F-35 could accelerate that effort by a decade. But the debate is not dominated only by concerns about espionage. Israel's long-standing qualitative military edge, the principle that it must maintain superior military capabilities over any other Middle Eastern state, hangs precariously in the balance. For decades, the United States has refused to sell the F-35 to any nation in the region, except Israel. That policy has ensured that Israel remains the most technologically advanced military actor in an unpredictable neighborhood. If Saudi Arabia acquires the same aircraft, even with modifications, Israel's strategic advantage narrows. This concern is heightened by the collapse of what had once seemed like a promising diplomatic breakthrough. Before the war in Gaza erupted following Hamas's October 7th attack, the United States was facilitating talks between Israel and Saudi Arabia for a potential normalization agreement. Had those conversations continued, the F-35 sale might have been offered as part of a broader package that included Saudi recognition of Israel. But the Gaza conflict changed everything. Saudi leaders have pulled back from normalization efforts, facing overwhelming domestic and regional anger over Israeli military operations. With no diplomatic breakthrough on the horizon, many in Washington are asking why the United States would consider handing Riyadh such advanced weaponry when it is offering nothing in return. Congress, in theory, holds the power to block the sale. Lawmakers have used that authority sparingly, and when they do attempt to intervene, presidents often find ways to override them. Trump has done so before. In 2019, he bypassed congressional review by invoking emergency powers to push through an $8.1 billion arms deal to Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and others. When Congress attempted to reverse the decision, he simply vetoed their resolutions. The pattern suggests that if Trump is determined to proceed with the F-35 sale, congressional resistance might ultimately prove symbolic. Yet there is genuine opposition brewing on Capitol Hill. Some Republican lawmakers, traditionally aligned with Israel and increasingly skeptical of Saudi Arabia's intentions, argue that selling F-35s without normalization with Israel undermines a historic U.S. priority. Others worry that Saudi Arabia's deepening ties with China present a more serious risk than the administration acknowledges. On the Democratic side, concerns center on human rights. The murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, the devastating Saudi air campaign in Yemen, and the kingdom's record of repression at home. Even centrist Democrats who once favored cautious engagement with Saudi Arabia under the Biden administration now question the wisdom of proceeding with an arms deal of this magnitude. The shadow of Khashoggi's killing in Istanbul hangs heavily over the conversation. U.S. intelligence agencies concluded that MBS approved the operation that led to the journalist's death. For many lawmakers, the idea of rewarding the Crown Prince with access to one of America's most advanced weapons feels like a betrayal of American values and a tacit endorsement of authoritarian behavior. Still, supporters of the sale argue that U.S. interests must be guided by strategy, not moral outrage. They insist that strengthening Saudi Arabia's defenses helps contain Iran, bolsters Arab security cooperation, and maintains American influence in the region. But here again, the risks are difficult to ignore. An increasingly independent Saudi Arabia, one that occasionally defies U.S. preferences, partners with China, negotiates with Russia on oil production, and pursues its own ambitions in the region, may not always align with American strategic interests. If the kingdom acquires the F-35, it will gain a degree of military autonomy that could reshape regional dynamics, potentially reducing U.S. leverage at a critical moment. This invites another question. Should the United States be arming a partner that is simultaneously trying to carve out a more independent and sometimes adversarial path? The broader regional implications are equally significant. If Saudi Arabia receives the F-35, other nations may soon demand similar weapons. The United Arab Emirates has already sought to purchase the jet, though the deal stalled amid disagreements over technology safeguards and the UAE's own ties with China. Qatar, always mindful of rival Saudi and Emirati military capabilities, could also pursue equivalent hardware. An arms race built around the most advanced fighter jet in the world would fundamentally reshape the military landscape of the Middle East. Would the United States be able to deny future requests once the precedent is set? Or would it find itself expanding the circle of F-35 operators in a region already defined by strategic volatility? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.